Welcome to the AR writing tutorial. The goal of this video will be to get you through your first write-up and through your first report for your first assessment. If it's not your first of those and you're just doing this for review, that's great too. But this is intended for people's first experience in the IAC. So before we get into it, let me tell you, this is all based off a template. You should not try to recreate this yourself. There are many templates on Box, including this one exactly. Don't don't try to just recreate this in Word yourself. It's not worth it. Also on Box are hundreds of examples of completed write-ups that you can go and reference. There's probably a couple dozen for whatever recommendation you are trying to write for as well. Some general advice I have here, but I'll explain as well. You want to be direct. You are sending this report to the company. You want to make it very clear what you're saying and what we are telling them to do to save money. As part of that, you should be repeating yourself. This is not something that you typically do in writing, but especially when we get into this action section, you want to repeat a couple times exactly what you want the client to do. Include as many images as possible. This is something that we're currently working on improving. I don't have any images here since there's nothing, this is all non-specific template stuff, but pictures of their site, the map of the area, the technology or like blueprints of the thing that you're recommending, those are all good. Anything that you used in your AR presentations, those would probably fit in well. Graphs, pie charts, tables like this one here, that's all good and should be included. The more the better. You want to keep things concise, less than 5 pages. Typically, the ones I write are 2 or 3, 2 bleeding into 3, like 2 in one paragraph. We want to maintain anonymity. Don't ever refer to the facility that you're writing for by name, and make sure that whatever pictures you do include don't have the address or the name of the place either. Instead, throughout the report, just refer to it as this facility or the facility, this location, stuff like that. Just don't use their name. Don't use any identifying information. Overall, you want to remember who is actually going to be reading this. It's not going to be a student. It's probably not going to be an engineer. It's probably going to be someone in a management position. So, and they probably, like, no offense to people that do management, but they probably have not done calculus in a long time. So you want to really explain your math, explain the process, explain how what we are recommending saves money, keep things clear. They're going to be busy. They're not going to want to read these reports. You want to make it easy for them to understand. Okay, on to the actual composition of what the write-up is. First things first, your AR number, leave this. This is just like which recommendation in order in the report yours is. The ARC number is the first thing that you actually want to change. So every recommendation has a identifying number on it. Although sometimes you kind of have to stretch the definition. So if you go to the IAC official website or just Google ARC number PDF, you'll get a big PDF that will have a description of something that saves energy, like boiler tune-up or air compressor replacement, something like that, and it'll have a corresponding sort of ID number. Download that, keep it on your computer because you'll use it for every write-up, and then do your best to match what your recommendation is with one of the numbers on that PDF. Sometimes they aren't exact, but you can usually get a reasonable uh, correspondence. Then this here is the title. There's no specific formula. If it's solar panels, write in like solar panel installation or something like that. Just make it clear what you're saying. Then we have the summary. Keep these, as it says here, 1 to 3 sentences. Keep it short. Go over what you want them to do, kind of what's happening at the facility right now. I want to put specific attention to this section here, the table. Always include this table in all of the write-ups. This is basically the summary of all the numbers. Most importantly, the payback period. You can change this table, only include what is applicable. If you don't have any incentives, cut out the rows with incentives. If you're saving decatherms of gas instead of kilowatts, replace that. Notice that all of these numbers are nicely rounded. We want to give them a general idea with this table. We don't need to bog them down with the math. So just round to hundreds, thousands, or ones where appropriate. Another thing that I want to show off with this table is cross-referencing. So there's a thing in Microsoft Word. You've probably seen this before, but I would be surprised if you've done it, where you can set things up so that when you click on something, it will take you to whatever is being referred to. So if I click on this, it's kind of hard to notice, but it takes me to the table that this is referring to. You want to do that whenever you have a table or images, and it's up here, insert cross-reference table, and then you pick the table. You can Google that if you need a more step-by-step tutorial. Also, for tables, any tables or figures or graphs, anything like that, always refer to it in the text. So here, basically, at the start of every write-up, at the end of the summary, you say, refer to table 1.x below for cost and energy savings summary, something like that. Always refer to it in the text. Always provide a caption. These X, like the table number values, don't matter too much. They'll be changed by the person compiling the full report, but just have space for them. Moving on to background and current practice. This tells you here, but it's what the facility is currently doing, how they're currently operating. We're working on expanding what we typically say here. We usually shortcut it and just give a brief description, but we should do more and include these things. This is taken directly from Julie's notepad, however many months ago. You want to explain what equipment and what system they are using, and these are kind of the parameters that you want to fill out as best as you can. So how many, what are they used for, what type? For example, there's like screw air compressors and other types, so fill that in. The rating and voltage, which is sort of how the machine, like what the machine needs to run, what it's outputting, stuff like that. Annual hourly usage, that's like its schedule, Are the air conditioning units on at night? If so, that's probably a problem. And control method, this is like, do they have a building management system? Is it automatic? Is it manual? Things like that. Be specific, be more specific than most of the examples on Box typically are. The action, one paragraph, very short, very to the point. Tell them exactly what the recommendation is. Say, we are going to install this device, this rating of device in this place, and it will save money. Don't include any of the math for the savings or anything like that here. Just very simple, explain what they're supposed to do. Anticipated savings. So these paragraphs are where you will actually be doing your math. If you don't already know, you can insert equations and get things like fractions and all the symbols that you would need. Do it that way. Do inserting equations. Don't just write like x equals 2 plus 2 equals 4 or something like that. Do it with an equation. For both of these sections, more or less, you just want to explain your thought process and the mathematical process that you used to get to the numbers that you have already calculated. So, in anticipated savings, you explain, for example, with power factor, you explain why power factor is saving them money. With some, it's more obvious. If they replace their boiler, it will be more efficient and that will save money. That's pretty simple. Others are more complicated. You probably aren't going to be doing those on your first assessment, but just keep in mind that like the length of these vary. So yeah, anticipated savings, you fill in with all of your savings stuff. This is highlighted for or underlined for a reason. You any assumptions that you made in your calculations, you should note here. Make sure they're clear. Try to justify them if you can. If you use some like standard values, like I don't have an example off the top of my head, but if you use a standard value that you got off like a website or a manual or something, list it here and explain where you got it from. This leads me to this other comment. You want to keep all your sources together and you want to cite them. There are many examples on Box of people that just throw the link in there, or even just like at the end of the sentence, do the link here and then move on. Don't do that. Like you would for a serious paper in an English class, you want to have actual citations. I always put them at the foot of the page using the insert footnote. Oh, you can't see this. Using insert footnote and do it that way. You could also make an appendix at the bottom, at the very end, down here if you wanted to. You can do the same thing with all your photos. You can put them in the middle where they are relevant, or at the bottom and just refer to them in the text. Either way is fine. Here you'd put all of your equations for savings. I like to do it this way, where I have sort of the verbalized version of the math and then the numbers, just to make sure it's obvious what my calculations are actually doing. We want to make it obvious why we're doing this math. This is what this is referring to. Include units and what the values mean. Don't just have a big jumble of numbers. And also don't just have like, I've seen it a couple times where someone will have a screenshot of their Excel spreadsheet. Don't do that. Just fill out the equation. Implementation costs are relatively the same. You just go through your equations and how you got them, but this time for the costs. This is stuff like buying the product, installing the product, maintaining the product. Maintaining can also mean, monitoring it to turn it on and off as needed, stuff like that. As far as quotes go, we have two notable rules that we like to follow. If you're going to get one quote, we really prefer that you try to get two or three. This is obviously good for the accuracy of the quote, but it also keeps us impartial with different companies. If we keep recommending one brand of air compressor to a facility over and over, then other air compressor brands would reasonably get mad at us, or at least they could. So we try to at least have a variety uh, between reports if we can't have them, if we can't have a good selection of options within one report. Speaking of quotes, don't you don't actually want to include the quote here. You want to include the value and where you got it from, but the actual official document just send to whoever's compiling the report, and they will add it to an appendix later on. In implementation costs, you want to include a contingency. The contingency is sort of a additional buffer cost that we add to make up for smaller factors that we don't calculate. A good example would be like the shipping cost of something, or if you're recommending solar panels, then the facility might have to do some, like they might have to flatten out their lawn to have the room to install the solar panels, and we don't typically calculate things like that. Typically, we just use a contingency of 20% of the total implementation cost number that you would have calculated by now. One thing, this is relatively new, so it may not be in all of your other examples on Box, but we want to explain what the contingency is and why we chose the value for it. For example, in the solar panel idea, you might have a higher contingency than our typical 20%. Or if you have good quotes and good sources, you could potentially lower the contingency. We don't typically like to do that because that's just making it less secure for us, but you could. On the other hand, you can increase the contingency pretty freely. You would do this only if the implementation costs and savings are already good enough, if your payback period is already really low. But you can increase the contingency, not a crazy amount, not like 300% of the cost or anything. Keep it, I don't know, maybe 60 to 80% maximum, something like that. But as long as you explain why, you can increase it if you have the room. You always want to include the payback period, this specific equation where you handle the total costs, incentives, and savings. This is like just the most basic equation. You should always have this, even if your recommendation has no other math in it. You should also include your incentives in this section, implementation costs. You may not have them, so they're not in this template, but if you have incentives or even think you could get incentives, include them here around either before or after the contingency. And then, as I mentioned, you can include your references or images throughout the paper. That's what I do. Or you could have a references section at the bottom, or like an appendix for your images, things like that. Okay, that is the basics of writing in AR. Again, you have many, many, many examples all on Box, and you are working with people with plenty of experience doing this exact thing. Whatever you write is going to get reviewed at least like 3 times, and it's going to change every time. So don't feel bad when your your piece comes back with a bunch of comments kind of like this, telling you to change stuff. That's just part of the process. We want to make sure it's nice and professional. Just be willing to make those changes and try to remember whatever you can for the next time you write. Good work. Good luck writing.